Well, moving on, who here believes that the safety of our digital world is as crucial as the physical one? Well, I'm sure we all do. It's my pleasure to introduce you to this pivotal session titled Proactive Cybersecurity Measures, Safeguarding Your Organization in an Evolving Web Environment. In an era where cyber threats are evolving and at an alarming rate, stay ahead of potential security breaches has never been more essential. This is why we have gathered a panel of esteemed cybersecurity experts who will share their insights, experiences, and the latest innovations in the field. So please welcome to the stage Nader Zaviri, the Senior Manager of Incident Report and Ramification at Google and Manage It. Thank you. Oh, you got to.
All right, thank you so much. I have the pleasure of moderating this great panel behind me. I'll just let you guys know this conversation's about actually the amazing dress that the dress code we have. No, I'm just kidding. We're talking about proactive cybersecurity measures. So making sure you guys in the right area. Can you guys hear me all right in the back? All right, let's put this a little higher up. Hello, hello.
Volume up a little.
Can you guys hear me pretty well?
Hey, in the back, can you turn them up a little bit, please?
All right, can you guys hear me a little better now? Testing. All right. Okay, well, I will do a quick intro of the topic. I think we already had it from the MC, and I will be the moderator of this esteemed panel with us. We have Jeff, we have Aaron, Gerald, David, and Kevin. I'll have them introduce themselves because I will not do them justice by trying to introduce them. So I'll do a quick introduction of who I am and why I wanted to, when we got together, why I really wanted to moderate this panel, and something that I near and dear to my heart. First of all, my name is Nader Zaviri. I'm a Senior Manager of Incident Response and Remediation with Mandiant, now part of Google Cloud. And what we do, if you haven't heard of Mandiant, I always let everyone know, in the past 10 years, if you've ever heard of a major breach or hack, 70% of the time it's probably us investigating. We never divulge our names unless the client and their external counsel kind of allow that and they put a press release out there. So this is something that I see at the front lines, and that's why having a conference talk around proactive cybersecurity measures is so important, because I am called when it's the worst day of every security person's life. I am called when the thing is hitting the fan, as they say, and something has gone awry. So I put together actually last year a article that's actually very reminiscent of this topic, which is I put together 6 proactive cybersecurity measures for organizations to take to help mitigate the risk of a breach. And it got picked up by Dark Reading. It's been published in January, which is why I wanted to moderate this panel, because this is something that I hold near and dear to my heart. So without further ado, I'll let our esteemed panel, Aaron.
Thank you very much.
Go through the list.
Can everyone hear me okay? Perfect. Aaron Landklaus, I'm the Vice President of Customer Success over at Menlo Security. We're a partner of Mandiant and on the back end, but our approach to cybersecurity is really to protect end-to-end browser security. So we'll talk about that in more detail as we get into some of the topics. But look, it's an interesting topic for me because as much as you mentioned, you're the reactive side of things. Once something happens in the worst day of your life, our job is to prevent that from happening in the first place. And we have customers like 9 out of the top 10 banks use our technology, as well as the Department of Defense with 3.3 million users on our technology to prevent cyber attacks. So we'll talk about some of that in more detail as we go along. And I just want to say it's a pleasure and honor to be up here with everyone on stage. So thank you.
Great. David Ron, I wish I had a Costco or hot dog story, but I don't. I'm CEO and co-founder of Security Technology Corporation. We are also a cybersecurity company. We are specifically more proactive. We are actually stopping ransomware and malware in a very different way than anybody else's due to behavior rather than identity. I won't go too much into it. I've got a keynote at 1:30. If you're a little more interested after this panel, please come to the 1:30. I'll do a shill here. Please come to the 1:30 keynote, and you can hear a little bit more about what we're doing.
Good morning. Kevin Mann, president of Resilient IT. We're a DC-based cybersecurity firm, not really. IT services and consulting for small business. Our job, as my panelist associate has already said, is to prevent your company from getting compromised. We focus on government contractors, but we service all companies in the area or across the U.S., assessing their risk. How risky are they in business or at the cyber level? So that's just a little bit about our company. We've been doing this for a long time, but really changed our focus back in 2019 when compliance really started getting some traction.
My name is Jeff Kraber, founder and president of JBAC Consulting. We're a full-service consulting organization that sets up strategic delivery partners with our end users. We specialize in security overall, kind of wrapping our arms around physical security, cybersecurity, leads into access control and a lot of other security pieces that kind of we can get down a rabbit hole on. But I've been on both the manufacturer side and the delivery side for over a decade, so really have found kind of a good spot in between where there's some giant holes, I would say, in the industry that we're looking to fill out there. So we cover coast to coast across the U.S. And we data security, cybersecurity, physical security.
Good morning, my name is Gerald Karen. I am the Chief Information Officer for the International Trade Administration at the U.S. Department of Commerce. I am a Fed. I am also one of the tri-chairs for a federal Zero Trust working group, as well as I am the chair for another working group called APART.org, which is a nonprofit, which has vendors, education, local state government, and federal participating.
Awesome. As you can tell, we have a very esteemed panel. By the way, Jerry's a comedian. He's always going to be cracking jokes. So we're going to hear a few jokes from him probably throughout this presentation. So I'll start with the old cliche question. And I actually want everyone in the panel to kind of answer. What keeps you awake at night as a cybersecurity professional? Dave? Oh, Aaron,
Sorry, yeah, no worries.
I didn't know we were going in order.
I could change my name too. I'm the only one without a beard. How's that?
Yeah.
No, for me, what keeps me awake at night is look, the threat actors out there, the creativity that they have and the speed at which they execute really has accelerated our need to be proactive in the industry around cybersecurity. So gone are the days where we can react very quickly and say, what's that look like? It's how do we look at the tools that we use and make sure that we minimize the threat surface across the entire landscape of our business. If you take a look at one example, 82% of probably everyone in this room, or 82% of our workday is spent on the internet and on the browser, but yet it's probably the least protected asset, enterprise asset application in our workforce. So we want to change that. We want to make sure that we look at the entire threat landscape and provide those proactive solutions. So what keeps me up at night is the creativity and the speed of execution which people are operating.
Assume I'm next.
Yeah.
What keeps me up at night is really how the industry has looked at cybersecurity to date, in that really it's a monitor and mitigate schematic. The penetrations are inevitable. We've got software that does its job, but at the end of the day, a lot of what the industry is focused on, certainly a lot of the service side of it, is how fast can we recover after that inevitable penetration. And we ought to have a different view of how to stop it rather than just having to mitigate it. And that's what keeps me up at night.
Yeah, I'll agree with those sentiments. I put a slightly different spin on what keeps me awake. It's the anticipation of, are we protected? How much protection is enough protection? How many layers do I really need? Who do I call? Having a plan in place. do I have all my bases covered? Do I have my I's dotted and my T's crossed? Am I prepared? How much prepared? You know what I mean? It can go down that rabbit hole. That's what keeps me awake, is am I doing enough to protect our company and in turn our clients and anybody else who we even deal with? It's very stressful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you guys more. I think there is a huge focus on, obviously, on cybersecurity, but as you look at everything across the board from a MDR, XDR, however you look at it, it's all in response. It's all reactive. I think everyone here has expressed it enough that it's figuring out how to be efficiently proactive in those measures and stop it before it gets to you and eliminate the reaction piece of it. So, you know, we have a ton of services. You know, we host the MDRs, the XDRs. You know, until we have a good MISO and we're able to get into an organization and really show them how you can be proactive in this. It's a little hard as we sit back in the consulting world and they ask for what they got a recommendation for from someone else. And so until you're able to get in there and really open everything up and show them how that works, everyone is really just putting in place what they've seen other people do, and it's all a reactive state.
I get my 8 hours. But no, there's two things. I work for the government, and you know the cliche about the pace of government. So we have a lot of regulations, policies, acquisition, things that we have to do. Can't move fast enough. The threat's persistent. The threat is well funded. The threat doesn't have to go through the red tape that I do to use the latest and greatest thing to do some kind of malicious attack, and they're very creative. So that worries me. My second worry is my end users. My end users are trying to get a job done, and they're going to find a way to do it. I can put a lot of security in place and lock them down, but they're going to try to find a way to get their job done. And if they're able to do so by circumventing something, that means a bad guy can too. So always worry about training my end users, because they're usually the weakest link for any organization. So making sure that they understand why you're doing what you're doing and putting security in place, and training them to abide, training them to be smart, don't click on that phishing email. Users keep me up at night to make sure that they know what they're supposed to do and why we're doing what we're doing.
Great answers. So we're hearing a lot of different things that are keeping us awake at night. And a lot of times, I think, Jeff, you mentioned as consultants, we provide recommendations. And sometimes we give them a litany of recommendations. What I'd like to know is, what are the top 3 recommendations you would want an organization to do for proactive cybersecurity measures that you feel are the best in maximizing limiting the risk to an organization? Aaron?
It's a great question. I think from my perspective, and a little bit biased from where I sit, obviously, but look, taking those proactive measures and specifically looking at the browser itself, doing posture management and security management on the endpoint, and training the end users of knowing what to expect when they do browse, having secure application access. So being able to balance the security posture with the end user experience, as you mentioned, is critical. So take a look at that, and don't forget about that in your overall stack for the second point. And number 3, I personally like an isolation platform. So doing enterprise browsers in the cloud, for example, and being able to render websites and access through a cloud access, it never reaches the end user. So if it reaches your endpoint, it's already too late. Something's already there. The threat's already there, and it's already invaded. Even though the DOM on the edge point system may not render it, it will, and is sitting there dormant and will hurt your environment over time. So doing some type of isolation really protects you and gives you that 100% efficacy over time from an endpoint perspective.
Okay, that was great. I like that. I'd say the 3 things that I would recommend, and again, I think we are talking from our own bias, right? Our company actually has a product that we think is very different than anything else out there that actually stops ransomware or malware, and it really is. So I would say you've got to use hardware. Software is not going to be the solution. Software, all you have to do is read the news every day. Software is getting hacked every single day. You've got to use hardware that can't be changed from an external source, unlike most hardware today. So that'd be number one. And again, come to the afternoon keynote. I don't want to give out all my secrets at the moment. Number two, data segmentation. It's similar to kind of what Aaron said. The more that you can segment and really define who can see certain data, who can get into certain data, how they get into certain data, the better off you'll be. And then third, really shrink those trust zones. I think in too many organizations, basically there's a variety of different ways in, and once you're in, you can get everywhere. Those trust zones should really be shrunk to essentially never trust, verify every single time from every single attack, every time somebody or every query. There should not be a trust process. It should not be based on once somebody gets in the first time, oh, I'm going to let them in the second time. Nope, you should check it every single time. Those would be my 3 suggestions. Kev?
That was great. I like that last one. I preach that all the time. Trust but verify. So top three things for me. We'll start at the obvious one: training. Top level, all the way down to users. Never stop training your people, because as we all know, humans are the biggest problem. We create all these issues ourselves by being in a rush, being too busy to trust but verify that link, that email, anything. So end user training, probably the biggest thing that I see. So that's number one. Number two would be multi-factor. So having a second factor or even a third factor on every system, every platform, every machine, every device, every asset, everything. If it can support it, use it. Don't leave your machine unlocked. You know, anytime you can protect a machine, protect it. I mean, we go to the nth degree on that. So we use FIDO keys for offline, online, because I'm not a very trusting person. Let's just say that. And lastly, and probably maybe even the more important than the other two, is adhering to some form of a framework or a benchmark at any level. Doesn't matter how big or small your company is. You should be able to adhere or align with like a CIS control framework or a NIST standard. The government follows 800-171. That's what we follow, but we also follow CIS controls. That's where we started. Center for Internet Security, if you're not familiar with the acronym. It allows you to have logical, physical separation, documentation, processes, procedures, again, from top to bottom, from executive down to the receptionist. They all have to follow the same processes across the board. And if you're doing that, if everybody's doing their jobs and following that, it makes it a safer environment as a whole. But you still got to do all the other stuff. So those would be my top 3.
Yeah, I'd agree with quite a few of those. I think education and training is paramount. I think even beyond that is follow-up to that. So providing the training and education is one thing, but ensuring that it's being consumed and deployed correctly is a whole nother ballgame. So, secondly, I think some sort of proactive cybersecurity of some sort. We can all sit up here and talk about all the different ones that we recommend. Every environment's different, requires different technology, whether it be hardware, software, or what have you. But initiating and educating the organization about what the options are is key as well. And I think third, this is probably going to be a list of items, but I think just security in general needs to be treated as one, whether it be physical security, cyber security, data security. You talk about multi-factor, dual factor, integrating all of that into the same conversation and all in the same team. We need to make sure that those the infrastructure team, the networking team, the cyber team, the facilities team is all on the same page. From when I say physical security, meaning access control, cybersecurity, we've talked about that to no end, but multi-factor authentication, that all comes together as one, and that is very often looked at as different silos within an organization. And so bringing that all together, because you have your digital penetrations, you have your physical penetrations, and they all need to be covered in some some fashion.
So when you said data segmentation, I got giddy. When I talk about zero trust, it's about protecting your data. You are gonna get breached. Doing data segmentation is going to reduce that blast radius so that if your bologna sandwich gets stolen, your crown jewels are still protected. They're not able to move laterally there. I can make more bologna sandwiches, plenty of bread and bologna in the world, but I can't lose my crown jewels. But the problem is, in order to do data segmentation, you gotta understand your data. And data does not always sit at rest. Understand what your baseline is. Because how are you gonna react when abnormal happens if you don't know what normal is? I don't know how many system owners that I've dealt with, they don't understand their data flows. I'm not talking about network mapping, I'm talking about understanding your data flows. Understanding where your data is, what it is, and where it's going. Baseline that. Then you can build off that. So that's one. Second, very non-technological. A lot of people like to talk about technology. Technology is very important. We can't go do it without it and these great and fabulous tools that are provided. But do you understand what your risk thresholds are? Take the telemetry from the tools that you have and use it to your advantage. Understand if this happens, once I have my baseline, if this happens, if I breach a certain threshold, what am I going to do? Based off as much telemetry as you can. So a scoring methodology, an algorithm, and drawing those risk thresholds and understanding what action will I take. So run through those scenarios and those use cases and understand what actions you're going to take. So build that strategy of what your scoring methodology is going to be so you know what those thresholds are so proper action can be taken. Third thing I would say is still not a technology, but understand your users. Why do I say that? Don't ask them how do they want to work. Ask them how they want to work, not how do they work. How do they want to work? Because you're bringing technologies, you're going to add security. How many times has the security shop tried to implement something and the president, whomever it may be, the top person in the company, politics takes over, and guess what? You're reverting back because it's too difficult. It's adding too many steps. It's slowing everything down. And then you're back at square one. Understand how your users want to work and build those requirements in to your security journey. Because why? You're educating them along the way as to why you're doing this. You're taking in their requirements and you're including them. So guess what? It's a much smoother path to implementation because they're well aware and you've tried to include as much as you can to make it easier for them to work. Because some of the things that we're talking about doing and adding security is actually adding benefits to our user base. So really keeping them as part of that team and part of that journey, I think, and building those personas is very important to make it a much smoother glide path as you move forward and implement things.
Great answers. Jerry, you had mentioned one thing, and I think this is something that we always preach. It's not a matter of if you get breached, it's when you get breached. Everyone will get breached in some way, shape, or form. It is a matter of how can we limit the impact of the breach to try to reduce as much as possible. So I'm gonna switch gears a little bit, actually. So since I think November, December of 2022, when ChatGPT hit the scene, now artificial intelligence, machine learning, generative AI is something that is like a household name and vernacular, even for non-technical folks. And I've probably done over a dozen conference talks since ChatGPT's kind of first coming out party. And every single time I've done a talk, at the end, there's been a question around AI and generative AI and how can we implement that or how do you see that? So I'm gonna proactively, in the meaning of the term proactive cybersecurity measure, I'm gonna proactively ask a question about this. Do you see AI being used for proactive cybersecurity measures I'll start with Aaron.
Sure. So I'm going to approach that question from two different angles a little bit, because I see both sides of it, right? One's from a ChatGPT perspective and enabling it in your environment and what that risk is to you. When talking with our customers, if anybody heard the Samsung incident, right? Posted a bunch of source code, over $5 million of loss just because they posted 100 lines of source code that was proprietary. Those type of things are real. And those are the type of things that you need to protect against in your own environment about what actually gets posted. And because anything that gets posted obviously becomes public information, right? So let's all realize that. And so that in itself is a threat to everyone in this room and to the company's proprietary information. So how do you protect against that? There are controls out there that limit ChatGPT and copy and paste controls and PII information, and it can do data masking out there. So that's the first thing I would say is look at your overall strategy from an AI and ChatGPT and machine learning kind of perspective and say what type of protocol do I want to put in place at my company to enable it, because it is good technology, but to also protect the company. So that's one thing. From a second perspective is how do we use it at our company? And we use it for things like malware and ransomware and phishing attempts, right? Imagine clicking on an email. It looks like an Adobe site. Most things that bypass traditional and legacy solutions out there, which are zip files that have a password encryption, right? You put that in, it looks like you're putting in your credentials to an official Adobe site, and someone just stole your credentials. Our technology and machine learning, when that web page renders, especially in our cloud technology, it looks at over 100 different factors in real time and says, is that a legitimate site? It looks at the number of pixels on the logo. It looks at the logo size. It says, are the URLs, probably the 25 that it's calling behind the scenes, are those legitimate URLs that are related to Adobe or Microsoft or whoever's, the impersonating brand out there. So there are technologies out there like AI that we use to help stop those attempts, because in real time we'll say, hey, this is not a legitimate site, and we'll block any inputs to those input fields to protect phishing attempts in real time. So again, it's an end-to-end solution, zero trust architecture, what you talked about. Don't trust anything until you know it's trusted and should be.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think, as you talk about trust, trusting AI in general is something that we're just starting to really sort of become comfortable with, I think. Understanding what is good and what is not useful to us. And so it's the adage of good in, good out, bad in, bad out. Is this an isolated GPT, or is it open? And so we don't know what is coming in, so we don't know what we're using it for. Is that being validated to then give the permission to move this thing along? And so, we're just starting to use it, but I think in the same fashion that Aaron was just talking about, being able to prove a concept of AI that does work for whatever condition you're introducing it to, being able to have it go through and reread hundreds of times prior to authenticating is something that we as humans can't do. We can't manufacture that in any sort of efficient time frame. And so really starting to lean on that protection side of it that can be integrated into our cybersecurity is a big piece of it. And so I think just, as we go through this whole changeover in technology, really understanding, does it provide value to what we're doing? How accurate is it? And really, is what's coming out of it good from what's being put into it?
A thought, just add one thing. Both of those are great. I think we have to realize AI is not a panacea. And there's some things that AI can do really wonderfully, like the things that these two guys just mentioned. There are going to be some things that AI can't do. And there's going to be pieces of cybersecurity that AI will not be able to solve, just like there'll be pieces that they can. And I think we're, as you said, Jeff, we're just on the cusp of that. And that I think we just need to be very cognizant of as we go down the road with AI as to what it can and what it can't, or maybe what it shouldn't be used for.
That's a good point, Jerry.
You must have watched the Terminator movies recently. Want to prevent Skynet. So a couple things is I love the SOC people. SOC people are very important, and I'm not going to dilute their responsibilities whatsoever. But a human waiting for an alert and then figuring what it is, and then talking to his buddy, what should we do? Let me go check the other tools, figure this out. There's so much data to sift through, so many logs that we have to retain and sift through. Oh my God, AI would be so beneficial. I just talked about a scoring algorithm. I want as much telemetry to make decisions as possible. So can a human make sense of all that quickly? No. AI can probably help with that. When I talked about baselining, machine learning can help with that and doing trends and understanding what normal looks like. Humans, we're always going to need human oversight. I totally agree with that. But if we want to be proactive, we need to be able to automate as much as possible. I think really, and when I talk about zero trust, really leveraging every bit of telemetry, bringing that into a scoring algorithm and understanding what actions I'm going to take as immediate as possible. I think that's where AI and machine learning, I would add as well, is really going to be beneficial to that utopia. It's going to take a while to get there. I think there's still some maturity to happen, but I like to think ahead. I have a roadmap in my head, and that's kind of what I want to try to achieve. I'm not going to do it next year, probably take me a few years, but I think that's where I'm going to be able to try to leverage these things as they mature.
And I really respect our SOC teams as well. So it's fine.
Yes.
I'm a little cynical, or I'm the cynic of my group, in that I want to trust AI, but at the same time, I don't want to trust AI. Is it really giving me what I need, or is it giving me what I want, right? How is it getting in? Like he mentioned, garbage in, garbage out. You got to trust the platform that you're using, vet your vendor. Are you using a good system? Is it producing the right results for you? Take the results and do that. Now, again, we use it from a different perspective. We use it just a little bit internally, maybe to draft some policies when tweaking it. All of our tools have some form of AI or ML in them. And that's because we want to stay ahead of the curve from the bad guys. The bad guys out there, China, we all know about them. We need to be ahead of their curve. They're beating us in almost every way. So we need to do something, and that's where I think AI helps us. All of our tools have that. That's how we gain the competitive advantage. It's a matter of picking the right tool set based on the right algorithms, based on the right platform. So that's just a slightly different perspective on that.
Yeah, and I think overall, it's something that we as cybersecurity professionals have to address. It's not something we could stick our heads in the sand. It's coming. It's coming with force. It's a matter of how can we use this force for the benefit of our organization, as opposed to now threat actors. When I'm in an investigation, we used to read ransom notes when they did a ransomware. In the ransom note, you could tell that person's second language is English because you could figure out grammatical issues. Now, that's not the case. They could just pop it in ChatGPT, and now a fully fledged, coherent ransom note is there. Phishing emails are probably a lot more coherent, eloquent, a lot more easy and precise now that you have something. So we know the bad guys are going to start using it. We have to learn how to use it for the good. And kind of going into an age-old adage, compliance equals security, or does compliance not equal security? What is the fight that always happens between compliance and security? I see a lot of people shaking their heads. Aaron, what is your thoughts on that?
It definitely doesn't, in my opinion, right? Compliance is adhering to standards, where security is more of a mindset or an approach, right, to the protection of those assets in your environment. So you can be compliant and still not be secure, in my opinion, because you're meeting certain things. You get the stamp of approval. I see it, hate to say it, sometimes with the government. We get the stamp, and and that's even in my personal life, right? So they're definitely not, and they're two different elements. So let others comment.
Kevin?
So yes, you're right. Compliance is absolutely not security. That's one of the things that we have to remind people of all the time. If it's my LinkedIn banner on my profile, I'm like, it's just not equal. Sorry, I don't care what anybody says. They are not the same thing. And as he just said, you can be compliant, but you won't be secure because it's just not based on the same principles. the rubber stamps, et cetera. So we're knee deep in the compliance side. We went from a cybersecurity firm focused to a compliance focused firm, but we are focused on the security side. So we actually do both. It's very difficult to do both because it makes productivity go down to some extent. But from our side, we, as my colleague here is in the government, we help government contractors. That's been our focus for the last, few years. I am a certified assessor. It's a very difficult test, but it gauges how would you address a secure environment compared to a compliant environment? What meets those requirements? How would you address it? It's almost like AI-ish in that I have to train myself to say, all right, in this scenario, would that be compliant or would that be secure? Two different answers, but logically you're like, well, it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. We take security very seriously. All our stuff is locked down, but again, from a government standpoint, that's what our focus is. We focus on the compliance side in that we have to make sure they're meeting the frameworks. So NIST CSF, 800-171, and even perhaps 172, which is the really ATP, that's for nation state threats for really large companies, typically. But I firmly believe that our industry as a whole, it's going to extend beyond the government. It's going to extend to everyday small business. There's going to be some form of adherence that needs to be applied. So it's not really the argument of compliance versus security. Everybody should be secure, plain and simple. They should follow security principles. Not everybody needs to be compliant, but everybody should be compliant because they address two different issues. Compliance is a matter of protecting data, at least on the government side. The data flow, I was glad you mentioned that earlier because that's, again, one of the focuses. Where's your sensitive data? Adhere to compliance on that side, but do you separate the data? Do you have it all in one silo? What do you do? It's an argument or a discussion that we have with clients all the time is, do you protect the entire environment or do you silo it out? Do you outsource? Do you insource? So again, are they the same thing? Absolutely not. Two different thought processes, two different training methodologies, and usually two sets of experience levels. A cybersecurity expert is absolutely not a compliance expert, and vice versa. Two different training tracks. I don't know if anybody has any other thoughts on that.
Jerry?
Yeah. So I'll use the word effectiveness in place of security because it's just what I always talk about. But compliance and effectiveness, they're in two different places in the dictionary, first of all. I am government. I follow NIST standards. NIST standards will say, you have a system, you must provide authentication. Okay. There's username, password. There's, we use PKI cards. We use multi-factor. Those, okay, I'll use username and password. I'm compliant. But if anybody tells me that's effective, I'm going to scream because it is not effective. So it's totally different. Now, PKI cards, things like that, much more effective. Much more reduces my risk. So definitely important. However, compliance is very important. I would not, just like the SOC people, I'm not going to poo-poo on compliance. But unfortunately, what I see is when you have IG audits, when you have the standards that people are checking you against, when we have these scorecards in the federal government, FATARA, if anybody knows about FATARA, they check more against compliance. And the game I see played sometimes is checking the box. And I have contractors, and what are they going to do? They're going to do the easiest thing. They're going to put username and password because it's the easiest way to do it so we can get a good check mark. And that's kind of the behavior sometimes it forces. But compliance is good. It's meant to do the right thing and push you in the right direction. However, what I think we're missing, at least in the federal government, is how do we measure effectiveness? How that is what I'm looking for. I myself, I would poo-poo on some things and say I would rather be effective at my cybersecurity, and then I think compliance can fall in place because if I'm being effective. But how do I measure effectiveness? Okay, I didn't have a breach in so many days. Well, do I know? Because I'm always assuming breach. Because a breach isn't always a malicious actor. A breach can be this guy sitting there trying to get a job done, and he finds a way to do it. Well, the malicious person can do that too, but I'm worried. But he's not a malicious actor either. But I'm being ineffective somewhere. So where is that? And how do I measure that? So really, they both have a place. They both are very, very important. They're both meant to do and push you in the right direction. But I would like to see how we can better measure our effectiveness so I know that my stuff is working. I am keeping them out. Yeah, there's things hitting the door and I see brute force attacks and things like that. But really, if they did get inside, can I be assured that I'm going to reduce my blast radius? Because I did data segmentation well and micro-segmentation well. How do I measure those things? Yes, we have blue teaming, we have red teaming, purple teaming, but those are very resource-intensive things and takes time and people, and there's got to be a better way to do it.
Awesome, that's great. And we're right at the top of the hour. I will say this though, I've been in over hundreds of incident response cases. Almost every single one of the organizations was compliant to some degree. SOC 2, HIPAA compliant, whatever specific compliance regulations that they have to adhere to, but they still got breached, right? And I think that's kind of, we're all echoing the same sentiment, is compliance is not equal security. And I think Jerry mentioned a great point at the end where it doesn't have to be a malicious actor. A breach is, the dictionary definition is unauthorized access of data or resources. That could be a legitimate employee. So with that, it hits right at the top of the hour, which is right at our time. I don't think we have time for questions, but if you do have any questions, we can be on the side. Feel free to ask us. Thank you so much.
Great job.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you again, panelists. That was great.